Hey fellow Tinkers, Explorer Idra here, and today we're hanging out in my garden behind my base as I bring you guys a bit of a farming guide with some basic tips on how you can use and plant and grow some of these awesome food items within the game of Tinkertown. So let's jump into it, shall we? Now Tinkertown has a bunch of different types of foods, and with that being said, I've tried to break this video down into three different categories of the foods to be able to replant. Hopefully to make it a little bit easier for you guys. So first we're going to start off with your basic foods that rely on seeds. So things like your pumpkins, which can be found in the forest, chilies, which can be found in the desert, and brown mushrooms, which can be found in the tundra. When you come up upon them and harvest them in the wild, they have a chance to drop seeds out of them. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use my chilies, which I've replanted here. And when we hit them like that, as you can see, I picked up a chili seed. So there's the chilies, there's the seeds, you pick them up, and then you replant them. Now in order to replant them, you just have to have the seeds within your hotbar, so we're going to replant some chilies. Now they take up one space within Tinkertown world here. And there we go. So we've just planted 5 of the chilies. And now all you got to do is just wait the allotted amount of in-game days for them to grow, and they'll turn out like this. And you can simply harvest them and just replant the seeds as you wish. So our next form of regrowing crops is going to be, we're going to take a look at our berries and our trees. Now keep in mind these again are all from seeds. So you've got things like your peach trees and your red berry bushes, which will drop seeds and that you can harvest from the forest biome. Then you've got your olives and your coconuts, which will drop seeds from various places within your desert biome. And your crystal apple and blueberry bushes, which will also drop seeds found within the tundra area. Now, when you're ready to replant these, you simply take your seeds. We're going to use crystal apple for today's demonstration. And with your trees, you're going to need 2 spaces within Tinkertown to be able to plant them. Your berry bushes are 1. Now keep in mind, I've done this as a row so that I can come along here and I can harvest these. There's a space in between. If you put them all together, well then you're going to have a hard time trying to get all the berries off of your bush here. So when you're ready, you just simply come up and let's say you plant one right here. And now you simply wait the allotted in-game days for the tree to grow, and you'll see these little crystal apples pop up when it is ready for you. Now the nice thing is that with this game, if you do accidentally plant it here, all you have to do is just come up and whack it, and you'll get your seed back, and you can replant it again if you've put it somewhere that you don't want it to go. Now it's worth noting when harvesting these trees and berry bushes that I was just explaining to you here, you have 2 options when it comes to harvesting them. You can either simply tear down the bush or tree, or if you come up and if you just hit it and leave the actual foundation of the tree or bush, then as long as it's still standing, you can come back after the allotted in-game time and it will regrow your crops on there. So now that being said, this works for both what you've farmed and put at your own personal farm or out in the wild. Now, you don't have to chop down the entire bush or tree to get the seeds. So they do have a chance that even if you hit them, there you go, there's some seeds right there, that you can still leave the tree up and you'll still get the seeds from them to drop. Now, if you do accidentally, let's say, hit it too many times and you cut it down, you still have a chance to grab some seeds and the base level of whatever wood or fiber or anything that drops off of them that you can get. But if you do accidentally find yourself chopping it down and you're like, oh no, I really wanted to have that, just replant your seed and you just have to wait the in-game days for it to pop back up. Now lastly, when it comes to your crops, and I'll use my trees as an example, any of your bushes, your trees, your planted crops, you're also going to want to make sure that you give yourself some space from water. So if you were to have planted, and as you can see I put my peach trees a little bit back, put a gap here, some pathway. If you were to put them right beside the water and you come up and harvest them, you have a chance of actually hitting your materials into the water, in which case it is lost forever. So make sure with whatever you're doing, give yourself a couple of good spaces away from water so that you're not going to lose your items there. Alright, and so lastly, we're going to cover off what I like to refer to as your regrowth food. So up until this point, we've been talking about different types of foods that drop seeds, in which case you can take them and replant them. Now, this last food groups, you're not going to be able to get seeds from them. So any of them, you're going to actually have to take and regrow. So it's worth noting that everything up until this point, we've been talking about those food items that you drop that drop seeds, you can actually eat them on their own as well too. So things like the coconuts and the blueberries, your chilies, although you're going to want to be careful with the chilies because if you go and try to eat them on their own, they will do hit point damage to you. I'll give you a quick demonstration. Boom, I just ate one and I lost 10 health. So probably going to want to combine those with some other stuff and not just eat them on their own. Apparently they're a little spicy. So that being said, we're going to look at your regrowth food. Now, this is food that you cannot eat on its own. So as you can see in the bottom there where it says potato, there's no symbol whatsoever like there is with the coconut to give you a health buff. So this stuff you have to replant. There's no seeds, and you also have to combine them or cook them, convert them into something else like sugarcane to sugar to be able to use them as an edible food item. Now, with that, we're going to be taking a look at several of these items, which are carrots and potatoes that you can find in the forest, wheat and sugarcane, which you can find in the desert, and the hazelnuts, which you can find in the tundra biome. So what I've got here right now to show you is I've got some sugarcane, some potatoes, and some carrots. Now with these, because they don't drop seeds, when you do find them out in the wild, you're going to want to bring them back and probably replant them right away. Now, I live by a general rule of thumb with this. When you plant these, for every one item that you plant, when you harvest them, you'll get 2 in return. So what I do with them is, if I was to harvest my sugarcane, I get a chop there, and I get 2 in the end. So I chopped down 4 sugar canes earlier, and it gave me basically 8 whole sugar canes in the end. Out of those 8, I took 50% of it, so I replanted 4 right here. This will then in turn give me another 8 after a few in-game days when they are fully grown. And I will take, again, 50% of that, so another 4, and I will replant those 4. So if you continue to replant them and at around a 50% rate of what drops, then you will basically have an unlimited supply of these different types of foods, and in theory you should never run out. And now I'll quickly show you the hazelnuts on their own, and the reason being is because, again, they are something that you cannot eat. They are from a tree or a bush, whichever one you want to call it, and in which case they don't drop seeds, so they are basically one of the only ones that's a tree that you have to take it and replant it. So again, you just take your hazelnut and drop it in, and now you wait the in-game days, and you can come back once it's fully grown. It'll have the little hazelnuts on it, and you can harvest it and keep the tree going there as well too. So clear as mud. Hopefully it's clear as mud. And with that, I'm going to show you guys just one last quick little tip here. So if you're anything like me, and I like to keep a lot of things organized, what I did with all my food is I brought it all down here. Now what you can do is you can create one of these little wooded mounts here. You can pop it on a wall, and you can take one piece of your food and you can drag it up into here. As you can see, that's blank. I click my chili, I throw it up here, and now I can actually see what's in it. So I like to keep all my basic foods separate from each other and organized, so when I'm done harvesting, I can just come along and pop them all into these containers here. So keeps them nice and neat for you. So when you need them to cook, then you've got them. Now with that, once you get all this stuff here, your basic ingredients, and as you get them and pick them up in the wild, they will unlock more and more patterns for you, in which case you're going to need a fridge and a stove, both of which can be created on your person. The stove at the very beginning of the game, the fridge once you have access to the tundra biome and you get your ice shards, and once you do, you put them in your base, and all of your recipes will be in here. So I'm hoping that I'll do another guide on some of the food groups later on. This is just to get a basic understanding as to how you can kind of replant and grow all this stuff at your base so you get an unlimited supply of food. Because the benefits of the food is that you get some very cool wicked buffs out of it, which will be very beneficial when you get into things like the dungeons. Now, again, as I was saying earlier, so things like your regrowth with your sugarcane, you got to have sugar unlocked here, and you can bring it back and you can actually get yourself sugar, which can then be eaten on its own or combined with other fruit groups. So with that, guys, if I did miss anything and you know of it, you're playing the game, please drop it a comment down below. I hope that I covered off all the different foods that I can think of that I've come across in the wild. Some of these foods, it is kind of worth noting that you can actually find them if for some reason you don't find them in the wild, or you've accidentally taken all of it off of your map. Beyond that, I think you can find a lot of it, I think, save for the brown mushrooms, I have found in the different corresponding dungeons. So say the forest dungeon, I've found carrots and potatoes in there on their own, as well as out in the wild. Same thing with the wheat and the sugarcane in the desert dungeon. So you can get lucky and find some of them in the dungeons as well too. So with that, guys, that's going to cover off a bit of a basic guide for doing farming. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please drop me a like down below. I greatly appreciate all the support. Hope you guys all have an awesome day.